You are listening to the Practicing the Art of Small Business podcast with Shannyn Merlo and Julie Parker. Join their conversation about business, leadership, and the self-awareness journey to greater success.
Welcome to Practicing the Art of Small Business, episode 17. What we're talking about today, Julie, is now you're at capacity, what next? Julie, welcome.
Thank you so much, Shannyn. It's been a little while.
It has been a little while. I've missed you. Julie and I had a bit of a hiatus for about, was it 3 weeks? 4 weeks?
24 days.
And I felt every one of those 24 days. I missed you.
Yes, the experience of life wasn't as joyous.
It was not as joyous.
Or aware.
Well, no,
contemplative.
No, not at all. Not at all. But I'm glad that we're here today. What are we going to be talking about today, Julie?
Well, you were talking about something earlier, and I thought that would be a great topic for today's podcast because I think this is something that many business owners face at some point in their business, and that is one of those growing pains that we started here, now we need to go there, and how the hell do we do it?
Yes. And so Julie is talking about, in my language, Julie's talking about capacity, decision-making. How do we grow our businesses when we are at capacity? Because I'm not sure about you, Julie, and the experience you've had, but the clients that I've worked with, there's the real tension when you're looking to bring us, even if you've got someone supporting the business, one or two people supporting the business, as you start to add more people, the capacity problems still occur. And it's because you're trying to fill gaps, you've got decisions to make, you've got to invest in hiring someone, you've got to invest time and energy in hiring someone, but you don't have the time or energy to hire someone. You've got to onboard that person, but you don't have time or energy to onboard that person because then you've got a system thing because you want to fix the system thing first because then the onboarding will be more efficient, but you don't have time to fix the system thing. And all the while you're thinking, can I actually afford to hire this person? I probably should go out and get my marketing sorted first because then that'll bring in the new client, but I actually can't afford to service the current clients, which is why I need to hire these other people. Does this feel about...
It seems to be the circular thinking that we fall into when we're trying to manage this time of our businesses, that's for sure.
Do you think that that's common thinking, or is that just Shannyn and Shannyn's experience of thinking?
I think everyone experiences it to different degrees. And when you were talking through that, it did make me think about one of Charles Kovess, my husband, Australasia's passion provocateur. One of the things that he says is that we all deserve our problems, and that problems actually, in fact, are a sign of us progressing. And he uses a couple of examples. So, for example, when Scott Morrison was running for Prime Minister, he had enormous problems. Did he get newer and bigger problems when he became Prime Minister? Absolutely.
Yes.
When you are a law student and you are faced with studying your law degree, you got a whole bunch of problems. And then you graduate and you have newer and bigger problems. Absolutely.
Yes.
And so problems that we attract into our life are an indicator of how effective we have become and how much we have progressed as a human being. And this is what I was thinking about when you were describing all of the problems, all of the stuff that you need to move through if your business is at capacity and you need to get to the next step. And maybe a helpful mindset to have around it is, rather than, oh my God, there's just so many problems that I need to sort through, you may then flip that into, oh my gosh, how exciting. I can't believe these problems that I've got. This must mean I'm progressing enormously well.
So I suppose, so what you're saying, Julie, is one of the first things that we want to think about is the mindset around these challenges. And we talked about this in an episode, we'll need to go back through the notes, but about time, that our belief around time is very much mindset. So that the capacity thinking it's real, but it's only real because of the meaning that we're placing on it. And I'm kind of laughing cheekily at Julie because we were going to record something else about the meaning of things, but we're going to go deep dive on that next episode. So hang around for that. But there it is, this thinking around what does time mean? What does my capacity mean? Why am I holding on to this level of thinking? Because actually, in terms of being able to be here, I need to have a different level of thinking to be here.
And it reminds me of that book title that we've mentioned in the past, Marshall Goldsmith. And the title of his book is What Got You Here Won't Get You There. And so the type of thinking that got you here is not going to be the type of thinking that's going to move you through the next stage. Certainly, if you're at capacity, you need to start thinking about your business quite differently.
Okay, so once we've kind of got our mindset shifted, and I guess that's a way bigger conversation, but that mindset shift is really about being excited about where you're at the moment, being excited. I guess excited is a word that you could use another word that resonates with you, but excited about where you're at. These problems only exist because you're at the phase to be able to go to the next level.
Because you're good at what you do, yeah.
Yeah. I had a coach that used to say, new levels, new devils.
Ah, that's good. That's good.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
Yeah. So also reflecting back that a year ago, 6 months ago, you didn't have this level of thinking or these problems. So you've grown internally to be able to have these problems. So being excited about that, and then being excited about what that future version of you who solved these problems looks like, that's a great starting point to thinking about your capacity and your ability to cope with the capacity challenges that you perceive yourself to have.
I think that's good. And I think once you've reached capacity, it is a lovely time to reflect on the journey and reflect on your achievements so far, because we do tend to forget, just like when we were learning to drive a car, we didn't see how much we'd been progressing because we would with us driving in that car, getting better all the time in such small incremental steps that you don't see that big leap of growth that you've actually gone through. And I think the same can happen with our businesses. We go along, and then next thing you go, oh my gosh, it's 5 years down the track. It's 10 years down the track. Where'd the time go? The time went to your growth and development, and to recognize if we had written journals, at the very start of that business journey, and then read them 5-10 years down the track when we were at capacity, and recognize, gosh, how far I've come. I am a great problem solver. I do manage time pretty well. I have got a great ability to understand what my market needs, because look what's happened. Look at all the things I've navigated over the past 5-10 years. And going into this new phase of your business with the core belief that, of course, I can do this. Look at all the evidence that I can, is a very good mindset to have.
I actually love that. Although I did get caught up in thinking maybe an offshoot of this podcast could be Shannyn reading her diaries, because I literally have, just a little segue of the discussions, I have so many diaries and notebooks. It'd be terrifying. I just don't know whether it'd be that uplifting. I'm going to be honest. Because I often write when things are not good. I actually forget to reflect in the good times. And maybe there's something here is right now, if you are at this capacity challenge, and my experience, personal and with clients, it tends to be exciting but really stressful. There's so many decisions that need to be made, and there's such tension in those decisions that once you get over that point and everything's good again, it's so good to reflect back in a positive way, because it reinforces the positive changes, as opposed to the philosophy that I've taken, which is just write about all of my problems.
But that's what we do as human beings too. We always think the bad thoughts about ourselves rather than celebrating the good things that we contribute to our worlds. And so I think that's quite a common mental space, whether you journal or diarize or not. The thoughts that are going on in your brain are quite often detrimental to your self-confidence rather than boosting yourself up all the time.
Although yours isn't, Julie.
I know. I'm the first one to tell people that I'm awesome, including myself.
Julie does say, I'm like, how are you, Julie? I am awesome. I actually am awesome. I'm an awesome person.
But look.
Look,
Of course I'm awesome.
Not see what is in front of you. It's awesomeness. Your diary would be amazing to read. Today was awesome. Everything was awesome.
I did this and I did that, and I'm so pleased with myself.
And I made these decisions, and they were all awesome. Like, and I don't mean any disrespect on that. Like, you've got such a positive, generous, optimistic mindset, and I think that really breeds your success. Whereas I'm more flat and pessimistic.
You're the balance.
So, Julie, once we've decided that, or maybe not decided, but realized that there is a mindset piece here, that our thinking that we've had up to date needs to shift in order to be the new version of us, and actually working through where we've been, celebrating our successes, and then future version of ourselves to handle that has already handled these challenges. So there's a real element of thinking about your future version that can really help in the now to go, what the future version of me has solved these problems. The future version of me has dealt with this. The future version of me would look back at this problem and go, it was so easy to solve because they'd already done it. So really there's that mindset stuff. So once we've kind of working through that, there's some practical elements that I've experienced with clients with regard to capacity. And that is tension around money, energy, and time to solve the capacity issues. And as we opened up, and each thing builds on one of the others, is it worthwhile? Do we build a scenario, Julie, and maybe kind of case study work through how we could solve this problem?
For sure.
Maybe let's just
let's give that a whirl.
Give it a whirl. As our listeners know, Julie and I love free flowing on the podcast, and we actually found that this works really well for us. So
yes, it certainly saves time on preparation.
Makes us more efficient. Okay, so let's make up a business and work through their problems.
Sounds groovy.
It'll probably sound like all small businesses, to be fair. So let's go with Diana.
Diana, I haven't seen her for such a long time.
I know. She's doing well. She's got a capacity issue.
Oh, poor thing. Oh, good thing.
So Diana is a service-based business owner, and let's call her a creative, for want of a better thing. Mm-hmm. And she has got some admin support, and she's got some outsourced marketing. But she knows that she needs to, she's been getting good client referrals in. So she's got some good business starting to come in, and she's struggling to now service her clients and get back to them and sign off on the marketing and do all the stuff that she needs to do. So she's got a bit of a problem, number one, of where does she spend her energy? And she does want to grow. So let's just make that clear, because, some people don't want to grow. So they've got to solve that capacity issue with what they've got. And that's an important question for people to ask themselves. Like, it's going to be quite a transition moving my business from point A to point B. Do I want point B? Do I want that life and what it looks like? So yes. It's an important, because growth doesn't always mean success. No, not at all. And in fact, and there can be forwards is nice word. No, thank you. I'm learning English goodish. Progressing well. Thank you. So there's always going to be forwards and backwards steps in the journey. And to sort of say, yes, I want a team of 10, but then when you get to 3, it's painful because you're managing 3 people and it's all on you. And you're like, I'm going to multiply that by another multiply, add another 7. Let's. I'm never gonna see. Wow, Julie, I hope you can edit some of this out and make me sound better. But anyway, so that can be a challenge. But let's assume she does. She wants a team of 10. She wants a full service creative agency. Mm-hmm. So now she has got money coming in, but she's like a lot of small business owners. It's not a huge amount of money. So whatever's profit at the moment is what she's thinking of actually putting into new staff members, but she hasn't got the full amount to be able to pay someone full-time wages. She's not sure whether she should go full-time. She's not sure whether she should go casual. She's also actually not sure what the person is that she needs yet, because she's sort of thinking the admin person is good, but should she combine the admin and marketing and she saves some money there? Should she actually just get someone who's really focused on client delivery, a bit of a project manager, sort of keeps her focused so then she can stay in the creative space, and then that she doesn't have to spend as much money? Where do we start with Diana? Julie?
My thought that popped into my brain as you were describing poor, confused, overwhelmed Diana.
Oh, yeah. She's also, just as another point, she's also, because she's so full up, her relationship is having challenges because she's not spending enough time at home and she hasn't exercised in about 4 weeks. Very common. And
symptoms of the overwhelm, quite possibly, that will then resolve themselves once she gets rid of the overwhelm. Or maybe not, maybe she'll become obese and single.
Well, no, because she's got us on her team and we're kind of poking her quite heavily to look after herself as number one priority. Well, I am anyway. I'm so annoying.
Good. Yeah, it's good to poke people. That's very good.
Just in the back while they're walking to keep them going.
Yeah. And what my thought was, we've spoken before about Tony Robbins says in some of his presentations, copy people who are great at it already. Maybe where Diana should be looking at is a business that is equivalent to hers in terms of their market and the type of business that it is, but it's that little bit bigger. So it's already got the 10 employees and it's already got that level of growth. They've gone through that level of growth. Look at them. See if you can actually get in a discussion with them if it's appropriate, but look at what they do and get a sense of how they're delivering that product now as opposed to how she's doing it right now, and start to try to pick up on clues on how she should be beating that path forward towards that.
Okay. So one of our instructions would be look to the market as a way of because we don't
find clues, research and find clues of people doing it successfully already. If you can get in a conversation with other people about this sort of thing, it's so wonderful. That's where you can start to really learn from somebody else's experience and problems in their journey, and you may not have to repeat those sort of same mistakes. You can get the benefit of their wisdom.
And one of the ways that can work really well with that as a strategy is to reach out to that person and offer to take them out for a coffee or lunch and just ask. People generally want to help others. So I know that people have been fearful of going to market and putting themselves out there and sort of saying, oh, why would they spend time with me? Actually, most people are very happy to spend time and talk about their experiences and add value. I would hesitate on anyone. I'd be surprised if of asking 5 people, if more than one person actually said no, or no, not right now, because I'm actually at my new capacity level.
I don't have time for people like you anymore. That's been my experience as well. People are very generous with their desire to help each other. And if you develop a good relationship with 1, 2, 3 of these people, what a great relationship to carry on through your continual growth and development, where you're actually coming after them. So you just continually learn from their path.
Yeah, and they can form that real mentor role to you, specifically related to your industry, which can be so valuable. They also, what is useful as well is to ask at the end of the conversation, do you have anyone else that you think would be worthwhile me talking to and asking the same questions? And that way your network expands and you get introduced into other people who've been there and done that.
Yeah, I love it.
Okay.
I think also asking advice from your accountant. Go to your accountant and speak with them about exactly where you're at. And they have access to so many other small businesses, if that's their niche, that they will absolutely be able to provide some tremendous guidance.
I think one of the things that your accountant provides the best advice on outside of compliance. So if you haven't got your HR compliance sorted, that is definitely, so if this is your first hire, you'll want to make sure you have your ducks in a row from a compliance perspective. Things that a lot of small business owners don't know, as at March 2021, if you pay someone, I'm pretty sure it is, but you know, this is general business advice and please see your accountant. If you pay someone more than $450, well, even if they're on an ABN, you actually have to pay their superannuation. So if you're regularly paying someone more than $450 a month, you need to pay superannuation for them. So that's come into effect recently. And if you didn't know that, talk to your accountant. And that's one of the things where a lot of people don't know, they're not told. So you do need to make sure that you are.
Yeah, and the HR area can absolutely be a minefield if you don't get advice.
Correct. So
because even reading through a layman reading through an employment agreement, you miss things that you just simply don't understand.
Absolutely. So making sure you've got agreements in place as well that protect you, particularly for Diana, who is in one of those creative fields. She wants to make sure that her IP is protected. If you're in any sort of organization, you want to have protection around clients being stolen. And I mean, for those watching, I should have done this, stolen. Clients have.
She's doing quotation marks for listeners.
Oh, yes. Thank you, Julie. Translating my
air quotes.
Air quotes. Really important to just make sure that you're protected, because the reality of these things do happen, and the more that you can set expectations and have those conversations earlier on, the better off you will be. And that actually having clients move on with your staff members is very much happens in service-based organizations, especially where there's trailing commissions and things like that, if you're a broker or accountant even. So yeah. So we want to make sure your ducks are in a row compliance-wise. Do you want to talk to your accountant? Your accountant and your HR will also help you to understand the differences between what it's going to cost you full-time, part-time, casual, or on a contractor ABN style. And we'll be able to give you better advice with regard to how that's going to impact your cash flow, so that you're better informed about the decisions that you make. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned before, what kind of person should you be hiring? And if you are particularly brilliant in the creative side of it, being Diana, then one of the things that you can then concentrate on, well, let me look for somebody who's actually brilliant and their strengths lie where mine don't lie. So we're padding this business out now with experts in their area.
That's a fantastic point, Julie, especially there's a big fear. Who is it? Is it Gary Vee or is it Richard Branson? I think it's Richard Branson who says that he always hires someone who's smarter than him. So he looks at his weaknesses and he goes to market specifically to hire someone where that is a strength for him, so that his business is always progressing to the next level, because he's aware that if he hires the right people, his weaknesses are no longer weaknesses because they become a business strength.
Yeah, and I think thinking of your business as that separate entity that you are putting together, like Mr. Potato Head. Is it Mr. Potato Head? Mr. Potato?
I think now there's a bit of a gender.
I don't go down the gender path. I don't tolerate that sort of shit.
Maybe we're Go back to Mr. Potato
So let's say Mr. Potato Head, we're putting this Mr. Potato Head together to be the best Mr. Potato Head that we can do. And so, you as the potato, maybe the head itself, you've got the guts and the drive and the skills to be able to establish this business to start off with. But everything else you add on, the ears, the eyes, the glasses, the hair, the shoes, the everything else, they're all the additions that you're putting in place. So make sure you're not putting two noses in where it doesn't make sense. You're adding in additional attributes, characteristics, and strengths that aren't there naturally by themselves.
I feel like I want to do a joke about a two-nosed Mr. Potato Head, but I think I'm just going to move on.
We'd smell well.
But a great analogy there, Julie, because you're right. You don't want two noses. You do want two noses if you've got two potatoes.
Oh, gosh, that's a whole separate issue. A new and separate business. A franchise.
Or just shared noses. You just pop one off and share it part-time. So we want to think about playing to or filling the gaps in the business, I think is a big point. And sometimes filling the gaps does take a little bit of an analysis. So I know that the experience that I've had, and I know the experience I've had. I actually don't know the experience I've had, but an experience that I've had.
I know something happened. I'm not quite sure what happened.
But to really kind of question, what do I need and whose advice am I taking? Because the person recently that I was talking to, they had in mind they were going to hire a senior person with similar skills, which sounds good in theory. It's Mr. Potato Head. What they really needed was more administrative support because they're very good at their job. They can do more of their job, do more sales of their job. They just need people to actually process the customer side of things. So if they got another senior person, it wouldn't actually reduce the business owner's capacity challenges at all. It would almost just be that they would then have a separate line feeding as opposed to actually improving their administration processes. Is that making sense? I'm protecting the anonymity of my client, which is why I'm not using any reference to a specific company or organization. But did that make enough sense to make sense?
It did. It did.
To you, Julie.
But I know you well. I know how your mind works.
If you need a map, listeners, we'll see.
Yeah, that's right. If you want to see Shannon's mind map, it's quite a sight. And if regular listeners and watchers of this podcast will know that I'm in the dental space, and I worked for a dental practice many, many years ago, and it was run beautifully, and it had 5 partners. So if I said there's going to be a dental practice, it's going to have 5 partners in it, would you have all of them doing dentistry and really great at creating a lovely work environment for teams? You'd only need one, because you also need to then have somebody else that's really great at systemizing the whole process, somebody else that's really great at figures and bookkeeping and all the rest of it. You end up recognizing all the facets of your business, including marketing and promotion as well, client relations, and you would end up delegating one key area to each of those partners. They would then take that ball and run with it. That's their baby. They don't have to go and think about the other areas of the business. This is their niche. They do the dentistry and this for the business. Mm-hmm. And I think recognizing at the start, we can become overwhelmed when Diane is going through all those things that were running through her head. That's overwhelm. Just start with the process of writing all the stuff down. What's all the stuff I need to do, organize, have, learn? I'm just going to start writing all that stuff down over the coming few days. Whatever occurs to me, I'm going to write it down. And then from that information, just assessing that information and then prioritizing, categorizing, compartmentalizing, you'll start to get a strong feel, these are the types of people I need in this organization. And these are the kind of systems that will be required in order for that organization to run smoothly after we go through this growth transition.
So let's assume that Diana has decided on the role or roles that she needs to fill. and she's got her finance sorted and she's got her compliance sorted. Now is the hard work, because actually trying to find someone, like hiring and onboarding and training someone, adds a extra percentage of time. And in fact, it's what's a word I want to come up with? Come on, brain. Like a bleed time. So you've got to invest a lot. Let's say you've got 40-hour week. How many business owners working? Let's say you've got a 40-hour week. Actually, let's do 50 hours, because then I can do it 10-hour days. Easier. So let's say you're in your mind at capacity. Most people who are at capacity are actually at inefficiency. I know myself, there's plenty of things that are inefficient, could be done better. But let's say you're at capacity at 50 hours. When you hire someone and onboard someone, you're going to be looking at between 10, 20 hours per week. That's then going to need to be invested in hiring this person, onboarding this person, fielding their questions, taking them to meetings, introducing them to people they need to be introduced to, help, getting your systems in order. So you've lost a third, two-thirds, two-fifths.
Man.
Yeah.
Love it.
You've lost 20%, 1/5. See, I can do maths. Or 2/5, which would be 40% of your capacity by bringing someone on. Now, you're bringing someone on at the point where you're 100% capacity. So how do we deal with that? Because that is a big reality. Something's got to give, and normally the business doesn't stop just because your attention does need to be somewhere else in order to maximize the onboarding of your team member. The right hiring and maximizing the onboarding. What are your...
Yeah, I think you need to recognize that it is going to take a certain amount of time and make an assumption about what sort of time that's going to take, and take time away from other areas temporarily so you can devote it to that. Otherwise, you will resist every step of that process, that onboarding process. And as you were talking about that, I thought of an analogy. I love an analogy.
Julie and I, because it's been 4 weeks since we've spoken, I think both of our mouths are maybe not working as well as what they were for.
I thought it worked okay. An analogy.
Maybe it's just my voice. My mouth isn't working.
And that analogy is a brand new puppy dog. You get this beautiful new puppy dog to bring you years of joy, happiness, connection, love. Are you going to go through the time and energy it takes to toilet train this puppy dog? Hell yeah, because you don't also want to be cleaning up mess inside the house and all the rest of the drama that goes along with the smells and everything else that goes along with a non-toilet trained puppy. So you're going to devote that time, because the painful experience it's going to have after the fact, if you don't do it, is so enormous that it's worth putting that time aside at the very start. It's not going to go on forever. It certainly needs a lot of attention at the start. So recognizing if you don't go through that and embrace that process of onboarding, it is going to be super painful for many years to come. So bite the bullet, recognize it needs to be done, recognize that you want to do it really well. So it does take as short amount of time, and systematize the onboarding process in the meantime, so you get a benefit from that as well. You get an asset from that. And take the time out of and look at the other areas of your business that you're spending time and energy on, and temporarily recognize where you're going to take that from, so you've actually diarized it. So when the onboarding tasks do come up throughout the day, you embrace them rather than resist them, and therefore do it well.
And you do want to make sure that you hire someone who is toilet trained.
Wow. What kind of resume questions do you have?
For anyone who's concerned about that, that was a joke. And also, you're not allowed to ask that question in an interview. Okay,
so I can't ask, do you plan to get pregnant? And are you toilet trained? Okay, got it.
101 of interviewing, okay? Yep. If you've got any further questions about what is and isn't appropriate in an interview,
So we'll go with the assumption
Go with
that
the
they know how to use the
assumption.
bathroom. Okay.
Exactly.
And so I think the planning around that can also be the planning done around everything. The minute we have got different, new, challenging stuff going on, once we've identified exactly what needs to happen and create a plan around it, we tend to feel a whole lot better.
Mm. It is, you mentioned this earlier on, Julie, but it's probably something to just pull out as a little side conversation, is this feeling of overwhelm and some strategies. Maybe this is like just a little side mini podcast of quick ways to get out of overwhelm, because Julie and I, before we started, I shared with her I'd had some thinking challenges in recent times, and I needed to really think through how do I get out of this. And actually, although the writing down of things was supposed to fix the overwhelm, it wasn't helping me that much, but journaling did. So just starting to free flow journal, as opposed to these are all the things I've got to do, writing down my fears, writing down what's holding me back, writing down my frustration with the capacity issues or frustration about not being able to make decisions actually helped me quite a lot. So it could be a strategy if you're aware that you need to write things down in overwhelm so you get it out of your head. That's great. But also writing down more than that. Writing down, the frustrations, the fears, the concerns, the issues, the problems, the decisions that need to be made as a free flow of thought can actually help quite a lot, and it's helped me in recent times. What other strategies do you implement in overwhelm, Julie?
Just the mindset is the most enormous thing, the mindset around things. So if with Charles's that you deserve all your problems, and another one of Charles's insights is, there are equal number of benefits and drawbacks to every situation. And to be able to enjoy the benefits of a situation, you need to embrace the drawbacks because they're going to be naturally present. Those sort of things, but also that self-talk around it, rather than thinking there are so many things to consider, are feeling overwhelmed, then you think instead there are so many things to consider, I'm damn excited. And you don't have to believe it straight away. This is what I found in my life, that there are times where I don't feel awesome. And I still say, I'm awesome. I'm awesome. I'm feeling awesome. My life is awesome. Everything is just ridiculously awesome. And you don't have to believe it straight away, but if you repeat it often enough, your mood does lift and your perception around things absolutely does lift as well.
Okay, cool.
Another element to overwhelm as well is clarifying the issue, and you don't need to solve the problem. All you need to do is identify a helpful thing towards that issue that you could do. Different way of thinking about it and an action to take. Maybe you've decided to leave that for now because there's no obvious answer, so I'm going to diarise to worry about that in a week's time instead. But always looking for not so much the solutions around things, but you're just looking for the next helpful action I could take.
I like the diarising. I'm one to, I enjoy a worry.
You enjoy worry?
I enjoy worry, which is why I do it so often.
I must love it.
I love it. But an instruction or a suggestion that I heard once was to diary worrying. So especially in a time where there was a lot of worrying going on, or rumination, or just thinking, however you want to call it, but to give myself permission to compartmentalize it and say, actually, I'm not going to think about that problem right now. I've allocated time to think about that problem specifically. So that can actually be a reset, because then our problems don't become this all-consuming 24-hour problem, because you've actually allocated time to specifically think about the problem. So there was either this solution or that solution. And what I suggested to them is, let's come up with more solutions. So it's a brainstorming exercise. And this is not my idea. I think it comes from someone else who's much smarter than me. They say, I think it's Brian Tracy, actually. Brian Tracy said this: come up with 20 ways to solve the problem. Now they don't have to be, any of them don't need to be implemented. You don't have to need to know how to implement them. But the whole idea is actually stopping that single train of thought. So if you then throw 20 options out there, what happens is then actually a solution comes to you, which seems to be the smartest one after a period of time. So that focused, I don't know how to solve this problem, or I don't know how to get there, giving yourself permission to really brainstorm ways that you could solve this problem can actually help solve the problem, even though it might have a sense of creating more overwhelm.
Nice. I like it.
Mm.
Yeah. One of the things I want to touch on, because I know that we're probably winding up soon, is just the money issue. That's a very real issue. You can't just grab money off that money tree out the backyard. There's not one there. I've looked.
I don't believe, with all your optimism, Julie, I don't believe it. I reckon there's a stash somewhere, you'd find it.
And so with the money issue, you do need to go down a path of, will this business, once it goes through the growth, what I'm currently charging for my services, for my product, for whatever, is that going to be enough moving forward after we've gone through the growth? You'd have to increase fees naturally if you're starting to employ additional people to get things done, because your costs have increased. And so you need to increase your prices on services and products. Will your market pay for that? So it needs a little bit of market research around that too, and looking at other like businesses and what they charge for their bits and pieces as well. And you need to be quite bold. If you're deciding to grow your business and therefore increase your expenses, and therefore you must increase your sales point, either the number of things that you sell and get it done more efficiently and cost effectively, or just the price on your services and products. If you need to go down that path very boldly, because otherwise your overwhelm will quickly lead to more feelings of overwhelm, because now your business is dwindling and your profitability is going down the drain as well. So cash flow projections, market research around pricing, important.
Yeah.
And that can help make your decision. Sorry.
Yeah, no, it's a really good point, because people don't think about raising their prices, but your market does need to be able to absorb it. And if your brand positioning or your product positioning is a low cost offer, then it might not actually be something that you can do, because you'd need to actually adjust your entire value proposition to the market. So then you've got to look at efficiencies in the business. How can you drive greater efficiency in your business and reduce costs in your business in order to, as well as increase traffic into the business in order to service your customers? And this does go back to the question or the point that we made before. Got to make sure that what you're selling can actually achieve the vision of your business. And if not, really reconsidering, well, what is it I'm doing? How can I introduce a new product to the market? How can I add more value to the existing customers I've got? How can I bring new customers on cheaply and effectively? So it probably does create more problems then in terms of looking at your whole brand, product, and marketing. But that's the fun of growth, really.
Yeah. And, maybe the option then you go, gosh, the market can't sustain a higher rate. So therefore, is the person that I bring on, but ideally want to grow the business and it desperately needs it, do you then find another person that's in your industry, just like yourself, and you go through a merge and you grow in that way instead? So there are all these different creative options out there as well. And this is where I think getting advice from accountants and people in that space, they can all of a sudden expose you to ideas that you haven't thought about yourself.
And business coaches, Julie.
I don't know if you're aware that business coaches, yeah. And if you're a dental practice needing business coaching advice, you just contact Julie Parker at Julie Parker Practice Success.
But I think, not to give ourselves a little plug, but give ourselves a little plug. This is where having someone who's independent, like your accountant, definitely, but also your accountant likes numbers and likes things to make sense. Your accountant's probably not going to tell you to think about your mindset. Your accountant's probably not going to tell you to think about this future version of you and what's the way that you're going to have to have grown internally. Your accountant's probably not going to tell you how to lead and how to onboard your your team member. So this is where having external parties can actually be really valuable in this decision making. Just a little plug about the value of coaches.
Inspiredoutcomes.com.
Thank you very much, Julie, for that little plug. I really appreciate it. So in wrapping up, Julie, I think we are at the wrap-up phase. Let's go through when we're at that capacity issues or capacity challenges and we've got the tension of time, energy, money. What are the steps that we should take to move through that to get it to the other side? Oh,
you are so good at the summaries. I don't even write a summary.
Okay.
I'm just looking at my notes to make sure you mention all the stuff, the gold that I mentioned.
Oh, okay, cool. Okay. Allow me to do the wrap up and feel free to add as I go. In terms of solving the capacity challenges and that time, energy, money conundrum, the things we want to think about is your mindset and how you're actually approaching this current challenge that you're having. So really embracing that and being excited by the growth that you've had and being able to reflect on it, as well as looking at that future version of you and that person has solved these problems. So know that this problem is going to get solved and you've just got to get to the other side. So thinking mindset is a big part of it. We want to look to external support. So people who've done the journey before us and who've had success, take them out for lunch, pick their brain, and you may get a friend for life. Look at, in terms of deciding who to hire, look at where your strengths are and where your not strengths are, as opposed to weakness.
They're called weaknesses.
I didn't want to use weaknesses. I said not strengths. Not great English, but not strengths. And hire someone who fits in those areas so that you're for good reasons.
So your Mr. Potato Head makes sense.
Yes. So that you don't have a Mr. Potato Head with two noses. Very important. Also, then looking at your pricing. So if you've got the cash flow challenges, definitely have a chat with your accountant. Get compliant around what you do need to pay them, what your options of payments are, but have a look at your pricing of your business and can your business actually sustain the person that you bring in? Even if it's not with the current growth, what are the things that you could do in terms of adjusting your pricing to support this? Get out of overwhelm if that's in play. And we did a little sidebar about overwhelm, brainstorming your thoughts out, writing everything down, journaling, talking through, coming up with other ways to solve problems. So that's that. And looking for efficiencies to improve your business overall. Did I miss something, Julie?
No, that's good. I'm loving it. And I do love the word you used earlier, embrace. From when I first started my business back in 2003, and that was when I owned a dental practice, it was the point that I started truly growing and enjoying the experience was when I started embracing all of the downs along with the ups, embraced all the problems rather than resist them. That's when things started to really improve in my experience of business ownership.
Embrace your problems. Give them a little hug.
Thank God you're here. Otherwise I wouldn't grow.
Well, thank you, Julie. I'm so glad that we got to chat. It's been so
Me
long.
too. It has been a long time. I missed you too.
And our audience wouldn't have missed us at all because, you're just churning these out, but I missed you. And that's what's
Thanks,
most important here.
Thank you for a lovely podcast session.
Oh, thank you. And thank you, listeners. As always, if you liked this, please do give us a 5-star rating and review on your favorite podcast medium. Either way, go and give us a review. Thank you. Also, probably worth noting, Julie and I are fun to watch, I think. So if you're listening to this on the podcast and you'd rather see our faces, go and check us out on the YouTubes.
On the YouTube.
On the YouTubes. Go and check us out on the YouTube.
All of them, all those tubes.
All the tubes. And the YouTube, the me tube, the us tube. And on that note, I think it's best if I just sign off, Julie.
Say goodbye, Shannyn.
Bye.